Good morning, welcome to another reading vlog. So today my sister and I are going to go to a bunch of different little free libraries because I've got a bunch of books that I need to try and find a new home for, but also just thought it would be fun, or at least more fun than just putting them all in a box and taking them to a charity shop. Although often little free libraries around here don't have a lot of space in them, so I still might have to do that. So we'll be heading to see all those little free libraries in a moment. But also this month, I'm slightly behind on reading. Like I haven't read as much as I would have liked to this month. So I thought it's the perfect time to read a bunch of the little books on my TBR. So firstly, I have Lost in the Moment and Found by Sean Maguire. This is the 8th book, I want to say, in the Wayward Children series, which is all about these children that have found magical doors, and then for whatever reason they find themselves back in the ordinary world, and there's this home for wayward children where they can go and spend time with other children who've had similar experiences, and also just like try and find a way to get back through their door, or at least that's what most of them want to do. Every second book in the series is a story about a child finding their door. And this one is about a girl who finds a door to a world of lost and found items. I do find the Wayward Children series is a bit up and down. There have been some I've absolutely loved and others that have been fine, but not necessarily my favorites. Maybe there was one I even actively disliked. Anyway, I'll probably pick this one up first because I'm the most excited about it. As well, my book of shame, I have Into the Windwracked Wilds by A. Deborah Baker, which is actually Sean Maguire again. So this is a spin-off series from the Middle Game series. In Middle Game, A. Deborah Baker is a character. She's an alchemist who writes these children's books in order to get ideas into like common belief so that then she can do alchemy based on them. Such a cool idea, and I loved that Sean Maguire was making these into real things. However, I absolutely hated the second book in the series. I didn't mind the first one. The first one was okay. The second one, the worst. Nothing happened. It was so pointless. And then I saw, even though I've seen nobody talk about this, I saw that this third book was out. And I had said that I'd DNF'd the series, but I'm just curious because nobody has been talking about this, even though a lot of people gave the second book a really like glowing review. So how come nobody's been talking about the third book? Anyway, I'm gonna read this, but if I'm not enjoying it, I'm gonna DNF it. That's my challenge for myself because I'm so bad at DNFing things. Then, as well, I have a couple of comic graphic novels. So Spell on Wheels in the second one, Just to Get to You. I just really like the art of this. Something about some witchy young woman going on a road trip. Sounds like it should be a fun time. I do also have some Brandon Sanderson short story novellas that I wanted to read this month. So if I happen to finish all of those, this is probably way too optimistic. If I finish some of these, I'll start some of those. So that's the reading plans for the week. I need to go because my sister will be wondering where I am. So let's go and see some little libraries.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop we like to go. Late night walks with you to take me home. With you I never feel alone.
These little songs make me glad to call you mine. And you have got my head in the clouds. Oh,
1, 2, 3.
all that I need is your body next to me on rainy days.
Just need your company,
Don't need too much, just your simple love and it's everything.
the simple joy of hearing your voice every morning. I wake to a kiss on my face, so I don't need too much, just your simple love and it's everything.
to the market, strolling hand in hand, exchanging letters when you're away. Don't need any effort when we are together. We always have fun throughout the day. I'll do anything to get your attention. When you say you love me, I seem to ascend to the heavens above, where we fall in love. I don't know what I would do without you, because all I need is you. Make me fly to the clouds. 1, 2, 3. All that I need is your body next to me on rainy days. Just need your company, don't need too much. Just your simple loving, it's everything. The simple joy of hearing your voice every morning. I wake to a kiss on my face, so I don't need too much. Just your simple loving, it's everything.
Can't imagine living life alone.
If we were to go separate ways,
'Cause with you I feel like
who knows how far we go. Don't you know that all that I need is your body next to me on rainy days. Just need your company.
Hello. So I have now moved my office into a different room. I don't know if you can tell that it's a different room, but there's a bed here now. I've squished my office into the bedroom so that my other room can be used for storage, since Jace is moving all of his stuff here. That's the next step in us moving out of town, and the reason why I've been doing a whole bunch of decluttering. So I haven't quite worked out how everything works. All my books are actually, these bookshelves are not too bad because I took a photo of them before we moved them, and I had to like take all the books off, put them all back on. The other shelf, which is behind you, I also took a photo, but we were in a hurry and I just kind of put things all higgledy-piggledy, tried to kind of remember where things went, but I don't really remember where every single book goes. And so it's a bit of a mess. But anyway, you can't see that side, so it's not a problem. Although this shelf is also a mess because there's too many books on it. But that's just a problem of limited space, which, never mind. I'm not going to say it's a problem of too many books because I don't think that's the problem. Anyway, this is a reading vlog, although I guess you would have just seen all the little libraries that my sister and I went to the other day. It is several days later now. I really enjoyed going to see all those little libraries. Actually, I was surprised how much space some of them had. Like, often when I go to little libraries, there's no spare space, but I got lucky, I guess, because I was able to get rid of the whole big box of books that I had. And also lucky because there was only one book that I saw that I then decided I wanted to take. So I got this copy of Words of Radiance. It's part 1. So these are the editions where the Stormlight Archive books are split into 2 because they're so long. And for these kinds of editions, they're just too long, so they've split them into 2. And to be honest, I already have like really fancy editions of all the Stormlight Archive books. I really love them. They're so beautiful. And so like, arguably, I don't need another copy of a book I already own. However, those copies are so beautiful, but they're also like really big and, I don't know, good for reading at a desk, but maybe not so good for reading in bed or reading while you walk around, which I sometimes do. So like, I thought this copy might be better for that kind of reading. I do already have a horribly ruined edition of Warbreaker in the same style, so they kind of go together. So I don't know what I'm doing with my Brandon Sanderson collection, but I grabbed this one since it was there and like in pretty good condition. And it could have been much worse. I could have seen heaps of books that I wanted, but it was okay. I was able to control myself. So then, reading-wise, I have finished Lost in the Moment and Found, although I only finished it moments ago. And to be honest, I feel like such a hater lately because I feel like I'm reading all these like hyped books and I just feel like they're fine, but they're nothing amazing. And I saw a bunch of people reviewing this, including like people I really like and people I really respect, being like, this is the best book of the series. And I don't think that's true at all. So firstly, right at the beginning, there is a trigger warning included from Sean Maguire about grooming and gaslighting of children and kind of setting you up for some of the awful stuff that happens at the beginning of this book. And I'm super confused about, though, is also right at the beginning of the book is this description of the death of a parent of a very young child. So it's kind of from the perspective of this very young child. The whole experience is described in so much detail, and it's so traumatic the way that it's written. And like, death of a parent is not a topic that I'm necessarily triggered by, but like, I just found it so weird because that part of the book seemed like it needed a trigger warning so much more than the grooming parts of the story. Like, I think trigger warnings for both are appropriate, but I don't understand why this traumatic death that's described in details from a very young child's point of view is not included. And then as well, I guess the book is very focused on the grooming theme of things. And so it doesn't talk at all really about the grief of having lost a parent at a very young age. And that didn't make sense to me either. I do think like the description of how the grooming was coming about seemed quite well done. From the trigger warning introduction at the beginning, it seems like this is something Sean Maguire has experience with, which is not great. And honestly, it was pretty awful to read. But also, like, as someone who has a step-parent, luckily a fairly reasonable one, and like a step-parent that I got from like when I was like 5 or something. So like I know the step-parent from a young age thing, and there were some things in here that didn't really make sense and seemed inconsistent. And I kind of want to go back and read the second and fourth books in this series because I feel like I really love those ones and that the writing was like so much more crisp and to the point and just like really hitting the themes really hard. Whereas this one, I don't feel like it hit the themes as well as those ones did. And then we go to this magical world where all the lost items go, and I didn't think that was explored as well as it could have been either. I do think kind of the very end, like the last 20 or so pages, a lot of things came together and I liked it. Like stuff was actually happening for 20 pages at the end of the book, but for the rest of the book, not much was happening. And there's so much potential in this world for this magical world to be linked in with the themes and again really strongly drive those points home. And I feel like this book didn't live up to its potential. And I feel like that often with these books because they're so short. There's really not much room to like build a whole new magical world in them as well as hit an important theme and really explore that. And as well, Sean Maguire is pumping out one of these every year as well as one of these every year, as well as like her October Day series, as well as whatever else she's writing, like a middle game book, some other books she's probably working on. Like I just feel like she's pumping out so much, and maybe I personally think I would prefer it if she pumped less out and like put a little bit more time into developing them a little bit more. Like, wouldn't this be better if it was just a little bit longer and we got more of the world and we explored the themes better? Anyway, I guess the thing is I didn't mind this. It was fine, but could it have been amazing? Yes, and it wasn't, in my opinion. Of course, there are plenty of people online who are saying that they thought it was the best of the series. I don't know. I've got to go back and read the second and fourth books, which I loved, and see if I'm feeling, maybe it's just me and I'm feeling meh about everything at the moment. Oh, I'm not sitting in a good way on this desk. Anyway, I'm going to go to bed soon and I'm going to start reading this one, which I'm not expecting to love. So we'll see whether tomorrow when I wake up, whether I still want to continue. Hello. So I still don't know what I'm doing with this room in terms of camera angles and lighting, but we'll experiment. We'll see where we can get. I really haven't done that much reading over the last day or so, just because I've still got so much more decluttering stuff that I'm trying to finish up, and like everything just takes longer than I want it to be taking. But I did want to update you on this. So part of me wants to blame this on me not having read much, but I think that's probably not fair because I am enjoying this better than I did the second one. I'm almost halfway through, and I think if I just sit down and focus on finishing this, I can finish it. Like, it's not that hard to get through, whereas the second one I felt like because nothing was ever happening, it was a real struggle. In this one, things are happening, it's somewhat interesting, but like still not amazing. And there's definitely bits all through the book where she does these digressions. And I remember with some of Seanan McGuire's other works, like Middle Game and some of the earlier Wayward Children books, I really loved her digressions and the social commentary that she included in them. But I just feel like some of her books haven't been hitting the mark for me with that. And a lot of the digressions in this don't really seem to be about anything or have any real relevance to anything. Like, they're not important themes of the book, or at least they don't seem like it to me. So those bits do get a little bit annoying, but there's not too many of them in this one compared to the last one, which was terrible, or like Seasonal Fairs, which was the worst. So also in the beginning of this one, there was a recap, and I think that was really useful and helped to get me a little bit more into things, even though that recap I don't think was that well written, and it had all these digressions in it that kind of were a distraction, so it was much longer than it needed to be, but still I was glad for the recap. And then our characters are really just transitioning kind of from the water element to the element of air. I do like some of the other characters that our main characters have come along with. I don't know, did I talk about what this was about last time? I think I talked about like the context of the book, but in this we've got Zib and Avery. Avery's very straight-laced, likes to follow the rules, and Zib is much more eccentric and experimental, and they're going on this quest along the improbable road to try and get to the impossible city to try and find their way back home. And along the way, they have joined up with the Crow Girl, which is a girl made up of crows, and also a drowned girl. I do really like those characters, and I like Zib and Avery. I think all the stuff with the rest of the Up and Under and the different kings and queens and the pages, it gets very confusing and it doesn't seem to have much of a point. But I think I need to be trying to tie it back to like the world of Middle Game, because those bits I think are kind of linked to that. But as far as where they are in this book, I feel like they're just confusing. And like, surely for the whole point of this being used to enable alchemy, it shouldn't be confusing because you're trying to get these ideas into people's heads. But anyway, I guess what I want to say is I'm not minding this too much. I did actually look at the Goodreads reviews for the series, and the average rating for this book is the highest of the series, although it's also only got like 100 reviews, which is like a tiny number for a book by a popular author. Is that true? Can I make that up? Seems wrong. Oh, 113 reviews, 492 ratings. Still, that's still a tiny number for a Seanan McGuire book. Should we compare it to the number for Lost in the Moment and Found? So Lost in the Moment and Found has 5.6 thousand ratings, and this is the 8th book in a series, so you kind of expect that the number of ratings would drop off as you get through a series because people aren't great at continuing series, and like, you can't read that book unless you've read all the previous ones. Although I saw in the reviews some people are just picking these books up randomly, and I guess you can pick up the Wayward Children ones randomly. This one, not really, and that's why she had to give a recap in the beginning, I guess. Anyway, it's late at night. I keep meaning to film an update during the day, and then all the time just disappears on me. So I'm going to finish off a few things, even though I don't have enough time to do all the things I want to do. And then I'm going to go to bed and try and finish this off. Hello! So, it's actually still taken me a couple of days to finish this off, but I have finished it off now. I think, like, one, I wasn't loving it, but also I've been doing so much, like, sorting stuff out. Most of my house now is looking pretty empty. Not this room, because I've stuffed everything that I want to keep into this one room. But the rest of the house, it's getting there. There's a few more things, but we're making good progress. And like, I kind of just want to be doing that now to finish things off. But anyway, I did manage to finish this off last night, and I think actually I did the last few pages this morning. And there was definitely a big part there where it started getting really boring again, and I thought about DNFing it. However, I pushed through a little bit. And then the last 20 pages were good. And I feel like that's very similar to how Lost in the Moment and Found was. Like, right at the end, the plot comes together why is she leaving the plot right until the very end? I think with this book, the stuff that happens in kind of like the first third to a half, that could have been put in the previous book, which would have helped with the whole thing where nothing was happening in that previous book. And like it would have given that book a really clear focus that there was a mystery and then they were trying to get back to the improbable road. This one as well would have ended with them back on the improbable road, but it also would have given this one like more of a focus about we've gone to the Queen of Swords palace and we're trying to solve a mystery and figure out her secret so that we can get to safety and get back to the improbable road. Like I think the way the books were split up was wrong, because as well that first bit was also more about the element of water, which was the previous book. I feel like there's so much potential in these books and it's just been executed all wrong. The stuff that happens in the last 20 pages could have been built up so much more developed and taken up a lot more. And there's a new character introduced, Jackdaw, and we're kind of meant to just trust him because the book says, oh, and we just felt like we trusted him. And there is some question of like, do you really trust him? But I was just really confused about why are we even considering trusting him? And I think, again, that could have been developed a lot more in the book, and even like questioning, do we trust him, could have been like more of a part of things. And there's so many cool ideas in the story, and nothing is done with any of them. I'm so disappointed in this series, but only because it had so much potential. But anyway, I did really like the last 20 pages, so probably later in the year, in October, the final book in the series is coming out. I assume it'll be the final book because it's going to be the element of fire, and then we would have done all 4 elements, so it should be the end. So I think at this point, I'll probably read the last book for closure, but I'm probably going to be annoyed with how much potential this series had that it just didn't deliver on. But it could have. Ugh. Anyway, the one last thing that I want to read before I finish up this vlog is Spell on Wheels. I haven't started it yet, but I should have some time today to read it, and graphic novel comic things are usually pretty quick. I don't know what this is about, but when I flick through it, it looks cool, so I'll read this and then I will check back in with you again. Hello, so it must be time to wrap this vlog up. I feel like I've been really bad at updating lately. And I also don't know, like, was reading all these little books successful? Like, maybe in terms of catching up on my reading plans. But, in terms of, like, reading satisfaction, maybe not. I mean, this, I guess, was better than expected. But that's not saying much. This was a little bit disappointing, but also, like, fine. But I've been reading a lot of like fine books lately, and I'd really like that to change. I will say, so for these ones, I did actually really like them. I just feel like as well in this, even though I really like them, there still is also a lot of potential that wasn't tapped into in this. And as far as I can tell, there's only these 2 volumes. There's never been any more put out. I actually think I would love to see these adapted into like a TV show. Parts of it kind of reminded me of Supernatural. They have this compass that allows them to detect people who have the potential to become witches. And like, I think there could be some really cool stories around seeking out these different witches, and also like a lot of discussion about how you responsibly choose whose powers should be unlocked and who deserves to have these witchy powers. But anyway, in the first one, our 3 main girls go on a road trip after their house is burgled and a bunch of their stuff is stolen. A lot of that stuff is sold, so they're going to the different buyers before they finally track down the person that stole the main things. I thought it was okay, kind of fun, but nothing too deep. I actually liked the second one better, although I think in general that's the opposite of what most people have experienced with this series. But this one, there is another witch that starts kind of switching bodies with one of our main girls. And this witch has like the power to control people. Also, our youngest and most inexperienced witch is really struggling with the fact that the other 2 never seem to listen to her. And just like, there's a lot in there about their dynamics as like a coven. And I just thought the story was a lot more interesting. Maybe not quite as fun, But I could see it as being a really good setup for this other witch to become like an ongoing nemesis that this group is always coming up against. But unfortunately, this is, as far as I can tell, this is all we get from the series, which is such a shame. I really liked the art. I thought it was pretty well written. Like, it was a fun time. So, nothing amazing out of these little books. I feel like maybe to get amazing, you usually need, or at least I usually need, to be reading something longer, although I think this year some of my favourite books have been shorter books, so maybe that's not true. Anyway, let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. Otherwise, I think that's all for today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.